Welcome back. And, as we know, the show is all about positivity, empowerment, and upliftment. And speaking to Koma earlier has taught us to reflect on our lives and be grateful for what we have, as there are others that are in worse situations. And talking about that, we're going to be talking to Nazia Salejie, who's a life coach. And she's going to be talking to us about staying positive in the midst of most adversity. In the most difficult things but very importantly, she's going to be giving us tips on how to deal with staying positive because, as we know, we're going through a third wave. We started off in lockdown. It's been a very difficult situation. And people are going through many challenges, especially at this particular point in time as we go through third wave. There's major losses. People are going through major serious anxiety situations. So she's going to be helping us out with that. So let's give a warm welcome to Nazia Salejie. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for having me on the show again.
Thank you so much for joining me once again. It's always a pleasure having to speak to people to entice us into a better space. And that's what I think it's about this morning. Let's talk about staying positive. As we know, it's been such a very difficult situation for many. And we say most of us. Every single one is facing a challenge in one way or the other, especially during this COVID period. And as we know, we're going through a third wave and it's hit us real hard. And if I look at the types of challenges that people are facing around me, I think it's gotten tenfold worse than what it was last year.
Absolutely. What we're seeing is that people, I think the whole adaptation, it's constant. We're constantly having to adapt. And of course, hitting the third wave and being hit with, thinking about, are we going to have the family meeting with President Cyril Ramaphosa? What impact is that going to have economically for people? Because mental wellness has been impacted. Livelihoods, incomes, people's living arrangements, office spaces. It's been a whole adaptation. It's been literally innovate or become extinct for companies, for people, for relationships, really.
I so agree with you there. And I think the word innovate is so imperative when it comes to this because many of us have found ourselves in situations where, like you say, besides having to adapt, we've had to innovate with what we do from, should we say, a personal environment and including the business environment itself as well. And I think having to deal with both has become, should we say, very overwhelming for many people.
Yes, and looking at flexibility, if people are not flexible by nature, if people are used to the comfort zone, and the moment you get thrown out of that, it is terrifying for people, especially since they've built their worlds, for example, around their workspace and the comfort of knowing that a salary at the end of the month is guaranteed and you've got certain things in place, and now you kicked out of it, you kicked out of the norm, the comfort zone, and everything that you thought you knew would be safe. It is terrifying for people and it takes a toll on mental wellness. It has literally, anxiety has been the order of the day. Anxious people have gotten more anxious, and people who didn't have anxiety have surely developed it by now.
That is so true, and I agree with you there. And I've seen it in many people. What sort of tips would you give them to stay positive? Because I think in this particular time, people are finding it difficult to find that positive aspect in their lives, knowing that there are some things that are going well for them. But I think the challenges that are facing are becoming overwhelming.
Absolutely. And, it's so subjective because what makes me happy and what encourages me to stay positive is not what's going to encourage the next person to stay positive. So you're never going to find the perfect fit or the one size fits all. But I think key is finding, firstly, what can you control and what can't you control about the situation? What is within your control and what is not within your control? And once you relinquish trying to control the situation and just dealing with what's in front of you, like what can you control? Your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors, and the way that you perceive what's happening. But you can't control the fact that your company is perhaps making you work from home and then cutting your salary. So you've got to then see the domino effect of having to adapt. How is your budget going to, be impacted? And then also talking. I think now more than any time, it is necessary for you to reach out to a professional to help you put things in perspective perspective and help you better cope or deal with situations. And it is absolutely okay to say, I'm not okay. It's okay to say, I'm not okay. I just need a minute, to let it all out, and then you can come back stronger. It's not a sign of weakness if you say, I am struggling. It's actually a sign of strength, because you come back learning so much more about yourself, and you come back with the coping mechanism.
Right. So, talking about coping mechanisms, what sort of coping mechanisms would you give us from a general point of view as far as staying positive is concerned? Because, as I was saying, many of people are facing so much of anxiety, and the mental wealth issues have increased so much more.
Yes. So learning about yourself in this time is very important. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And what can you play up in terms of your strengths and your talents? How can it serve you? For example, people in the hospitality industry have suffered so much, and then they went home and they started their own little catering, thing where they're cooking and baking from home. That is
Right.
capitalizing on your strength. What is your talent? What is it that you're good at? Even if it's making roti or making those lovely chutneys or whatever you make, start
Mm.
small, but start with what you have and give yourself an opportunity, a chance to advertise, to market this, and see what comes back. So playing up your strengths and accepting and acknowledging your weaknesses is very important, and keeping a good perspective on your life, a good positive outlook, is very important. If you feel that you're struggling with outlook, speak to someone, get to your support system, start a support group for people yourself, with a few of your friends, and say, this is the
Mm.
group where we're going to post motivational stuff. We're going to keep each other in check. If anybody's feeling like, I can't do this today, let the group know, and have that support system going. And then also, adding positivity to every situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. Everyone is trained to see negative. To see positive is
Yes.
takes much more work than negative, and that's why the support system is important. And if you are going to determine what is within your control and what is not in your control, that's going to help you a whole lot in terms of going forward. Sometimes, they say that it's a blessing in disguise. Sometimes, the epidemic has given people the opportunity to realize they can be self-sufficient. You can tap into your own potential instead of relying on someone else who can kick you out the door tomorrow. It emphasizes
Mm.
the importance of having your own back, having a side hustle, starting something on your own, and putting that savings away if you are able to do it. But positivity, there's no one size fits all. It is
Mm.
absolutely dependent on your situation, and there's a lesson and there's a blessing in everything. You've just got to look at what the lessons are that are presenting themselves to you.
Right. Let's talk about people in situations where, as we know, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of loss at this point in time. So, what advice would you give to those kinds of people that have lost so many of their loved ones during this very difficult period?
Yes, it's something that, again, it's not in your control. And the stages of grief will be ongoing. Like we said, it will be every day you'll go through anger, denial, bargaining, and it's something that at every single level you will require something different. When you are in a moment where you want to cry, you should be able to break down and cry. When you need a support system and you don't want to do it alone, you should reach out to your support system. And we know we just came out of Ramadan and we had Eid, and it was
Mm.
probably first Eid for a lot of people.
Mm.
So it's still fresh. And also, the whole aspect of not getting closure from the mayats, from the funerals. Bodies are going straight
Mm.
from husal khanas and that straight to the graveyards, to the cemeteries and stuff. So it's not easy, but you need to know that you are not alone. There are people who can assist you, and you need to reach out. But in that, you need to also realize when you need to be alone and be given that safe space to be alone, and take on the legacy, thinking that everything that person did in your life, it's like a well inside of you. Just go into that well and draw strength, courage, love from there, because I assure you, they would want you to be happy, to move on with your life, not forgetting them, but remembering the essence of what they taught you and what their presence added to your life. That is the true gift. The only positive thing that can come out is that the essence of you will stay with me, and I will honor your memory by building on that.
Mm-hmm. I so understand what you're saying. It's also about creating, like you said, those support structures, and I think that's important. Also, there's something that I read about you, which really stood out for me, and I want to talk about it. Is the goal? You say the goal is not to create more followers; it is to develop more leaders. My skills are simply empowerment. I love that idea because the thing is, it teaches us the importance, and this is what we talk about on the show time and again, is about empowerment, about trying to help somebody empower themselves. It's one thing to go out and lend a hand, but another thing to create that word empowerment. So let's talk about the importance of it, because I think many people don't get the difference between lending that hand and the empowerment version of things.
Yes, you see, I think that the concept of that comes when you think to yourself you could forever lead, but then what legacy are you leaving? People have different strengths. We're trying to shine a light on your potential, because my strength is not your strength, is not someone else's strength. And the thing is, people just need to understand that your gift can empower someone else to take the lead. The idea is not for people to become dependent. The idea is for people to become independent and tap into their strengths so they become self-sufficient. Like there's this saying that says, don't give a man a fish, teach him how to fish. Because if you give him a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You feed a community. You are, he's a possible entrepreneur in the making. And I'm a firm believer of that, is that if you empower other people to see the potential within them, and for them to be so obsessed with creating this kind of an environment of leading in your area of gifting. If that is your gift, lead. But if it's not your gift, then be okay with becoming a follower, because the best leaders, I do believe, were once the best followers and are flexible in that you can go from leading to following in an instant. And that's what's key. It's an ever learning journey, and I think I'm still on that quest. And I'm a leader and a follower any time of the day, but following has taught me much more than leading.
I suppose following teaches you that humbleness and that humility that a leader is actually going to require. You get different types of leaders, but like I think a selfless leader is one that thinks about the other individual and not yourself, and having to empower and improve that person's life is the type of satisfaction that you're going to get and fulfillment from it, and that's what it's about.
Absolutely. And also knowing that, it's okay for us to follow, because it challenges the ego. Being leaders and being humble and everything, you'll notice true leaders don't have to say, I'm a leader. It's everybody else around them will say, what, this person is a leader. And when you come to them, they're like, no, my title is human being. And I read that from Robin Sharma, because I take that from Robin Sharma because he's got a book called The Leader Without a Title. And
Yes.
he encourages people to lead in every single thing that you do, whether you are sweeping the streets or whether you are doing dishes or whether you are just working. Every platform is every interaction with another human being is an opportunity to express your highest values. So if you are in front of another human being, it's an opportunity to leave them in a better space than you found them. And that is key, I think, in any interaction. Just leaving people in a better space than you found them.
Yes, agreed. And what about you yourself, like me myself, having to move into a better space? I was reading something the other day that I found very interesting, and it's called self-talk. They say that there's nothing wrong if you talk to yourself and you self-affirm, and that's important, because if you can tell yourself, because as we know, everything is mind over matter. Is what we're putting into our mind is what type of individual we're becoming. And if we're going to tell ourselves that I cannot do this. I'm becoming overwhelmed. This issue of mine is too challenging. I cannot deal with it. I've literally had enough. That's when you actually, as an individual, start dipping into a space and into a very dark space that is difficult to actually come out of. And so I was reading about the self-talk thing, where it teaches you to be able to affirm yourself about the certain positive things that you're doing for yourself, and moving your own space before you actually reach out for that support structure, which I think is important, because they say everything starts with yourself.
Yes, that's very important. And I like that because, moving in your own space, I mean, as much as you love other people and you want them to do the best for themselves, you've got to do it for yourself so you can walk the talk as well. And also, they say that people can only meet you at the depth or level that they have met themselves. And, in order for you to meet yourself, you've got to get to know yourself as you would a friend. And this is all part of being positive, showing yourself that kind of love that you show your sister, mother, or significant other, and staying positive in the face of anything. But you also notice the pattern in your reactions in situations. You'll notice whether you get angry, what do you do? When you're under pressure, what do you do? And it's up to you to challenge yourself, to improve yourself in that space. What it will require accountability, it will require very difficult conversations, it will require, maybe you can kick and scream, but it's only for yourself, but
Yes.
you've got to coach yourself before you coach someone else. You've got to succeed, at this path before you can help someone else.
Yes, that is very true, and I so agree with you there. And like we were saying about the self talk and moving yourself into a better space. What advice would you give to people that, irrespective of trying all of that, they still can't help themselves shift from that negativity to the positivity? They still find themselves in this darkness where they can't move into light in some way.
You see, it just depends on whether you went down to the root of the problem. Did you really explore the root of the issue? Because we can't deal with what's on the surface. As we know, if like an iceberg, 10%, only 10% of an iceberg is visible. The remaining 90% is below sea level. That is just how personalities work. So if you're not willing to do the work and dig and have an objective third party, like a coach, a life coach, a counselor, someone that you're comfortable talking to, saying that, yes, what I'm going to tell you, you might not want to hear, but you need to hear. If you don't take corrective action here, you could do every coaching program under the sun, but you are not going to succeed at moving yourself forward. And the reason for that is because you haven't gotten to the root of the issue. You're literally just dealing with the surface stuff.
Yes, and then this is what I find very interesting, because there's one very important question that I have for you. If you look at the situation that people are living in now, a lot of them have stopped living and they started existing. And I find that a very serious situation, because they've literally just given up on keeping that attitude to say that I am going to get myself out of this irrespective.
This is very profound. And I think that, when you go on autopilot, it's called autopilot, when the planes have a function where the pilot sits back and relaxes and he programs for the destination and he goes. You cannot be unconscious in your own life. You have got to be conscious. You've got to be a participant, because you are here for a reason and a mission and a purpose. And life is wonderful. It's a beautiful experience. Islam teaches us also to be positive and remain positive, because at the end of the day, we were not in control. We were never ever in control. Once you relinquish that as well and find out what is it actually that you are struggling with, when did you force yourself into the submission of an early unconscious, almost like a death, where I'm just gonna survive, I hate this thing also, when you meet people and you say, how are you, and they say, still living, or still breathing, or I'm still alive. It should be
Yeah.
more than that. You should, but look within yourself. When did you stop? There's something there, there's some reason there, and when we get to that, we get to the root of why you are the way you are, and we clear it up and we say, right, now the sky is the limit, literally, go.
Right. So it's determining the root of the problem to be able to ask yourself, what is it that's causing this within you? But a lot of the times you find people that are sitting in the situation that have determined the root of the problem but are not willing to fix it.
Yes, it's the motivation to move yourself from the situation. It's the motivation for what the lesson truly is. Have you really dealt with the root of the issue? And how safe, it's also about comfort zones they've created. Do you know that some people actually thrive in the victim mentality? Some people are addicted to toxic negative feelings. They have taken it on as an identity, and they even look for evidence to support why they should remain in the state that they're in. They just enjoy the kind of attention and comfort that that space brings. Further than that, sometimes it could be a psychiatric issue or a psychological issue that needs to be dealt with from a more medical point of view. Perhaps they require medication or mood stabilizers. But it all just depends, because I deal with people who also suffer from addiction, and they suffer with a lot of underlying psychological illnesses as well, not as a
Right.
result of addiction, but obviously it's underlying. It's been there before addiction, but just was heightened because of drug use.
Mm. And I think people turn to that because it's their a form of escapism. It's their way of getting away from the issue itself. Because, as I was saying, sometimes people don't deal with their situations as well as So everybody's space, I think, is different. Their mental space is different. So everybody deals with the type of situation that they're in a different manner. Some are more resilient and others aren't. And I think that's what it's about. It's about being able to build that resilience up and putting yourself in a particular space to tell yourself that irrespective of what my situation is, and as you were saying, they look, a lot of people love staying in that negative space. But what happens is inevitably it does affect the people around them, because we must remember one thing: when we're in that negative space, the people we interact with is where we edging that on towards them as well.
Absolutely. And it's learned behaviors too. We are also teaching people around us how to treat us. We're also showing children what a coping mechanism in is, and just bringing it to that. How many of us right now take prescription medication? We self-medicate when we know clearly we don't have a headache. We just want to sleep, or it's a form of escapism. I'm stressed. I feel like I need a muscle relaxant or something. You are teaching children, you are teaching people around you how to cope, and also exposing your body to the kind of toxicity that comes with those decisions and those medications.
That is so true. What advice would you give us today? What do you think is the most important thing with regard to being positive?
With regards to being positive, I think that there's no life that's going to come without adversity. We're never going to be without challenges, but every challenge teaches you or unearths a different strength in you. What is this challenge trying? Sit down with yourself and say, what is this trying to teach me? How am I equipped to deal with this? And staying positive it's something that it's not subject. It's completely not a one size fits all. And I would advise that if you find that it is difficult, it's okay to say, I'm not okay. And it's okay to reach out to professionals and your support structures, because I know that you can't stay positive all the time.
Mm.
But you can take that minute and come back and say, okay, I am going to be okay, no matter what okay is. It's also telling yourself that.
I so agree with you there. What message would you like to leave our listeners and viewers with this afternoon? What is it that you think that is imperative for them to go home with?
Okay, so I always say to people, Martin Luther King says, live your life with passion, energy, and excellence, so that people who watch you will want to do what you do. So if a street sweeper were to sweep, he must sweep with such energy, passion, and excellence that people who watch him will want to sweep streets. I say, live your life with passion and energy, and it will quantify to excellence no matter what you do. You were never built to sink, just like a ship above water. The moment it springs a leak, there's an entire ocean waiting to get in there. And that's positivity, and negativity is the water. Do not allow your ship of positivity to spring a leak. There's an entire ocean of negativity waiting to get in in there, but it's mind over matter. And you certainly were built to make it through the storm.
Wow, that's so amazingly said. And I think it gets you thinking in many directions. So I want to thank you for that valuable piece of advice. And thank you so much for joining us this morning on enticing people into better spaces and places, as I always say. And I think you said that earlier too. And it gets me going on another level when I know that we've helped somebody actually look at something in a different light compared to where they were initially. And I think this has helped in many directions. So thank you so much. Wishing you nothing but the best going forward, and do stay safe.
Thank you, you too, and Jazakallah for having me on the show again.
It was only a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nazia Salejie giving us some advice with regard to dealing with life and changing ourselves, our space and our place into a better situation where we look at it from a positive point of view. And I think positivity is key because it's mind over matter. When we're in a positive space, we look at things from a very different focus and a different way of dealing with things. And that's what's going to help us move forward through this very difficult time. And I hope that has helped you shed some light on that situation. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in a moment.